Lauren Withrow, welcome to A.PUTNAM's Women in Golf.
Thank you for having me, Allie. So excited to finally hop on and get to chat with you about women's golf.
I know, likewise. You are doing so many things, but I'll just summarize that you were college football PGA Tour broadcaster amongst all sorts of things. So we're so excited to kind of flip the table around and get to ask you a bunch of questions.
I mean, this is fun. I never get to do this. I'm always on the other side, so I can't wait to watch you rock it as well.
Oh my gosh, right. I'm going to need like a full download of how I did, where I should improve, all those things. So it's not my bag at all, but it's easy to have a conversation with all these women. It's just so fun to hear your story because I don't think you get to share it very often.
No, it's so true and it's fun. It's kind of weird being on this side of it too. I'm like a little bit nervous because I never thought about me. But yeah, it's awesome that you're giving me, this platform as well. And it's been cool to follow along all the other women too. Some of them ones that I know or like know over social media, but getting to
Yeah.
actually watch your series and feel like I get to know them as well is like it's so great for all of us on the other side too.
It is. Well, thank you. And that is what's so neat is to see how golf kind of intertwines and how everybody's got kind of a different story and may land in a certain like profession, but you guys all have such a different experience and personality, and that's what makes it so fun to hear. And I think for women that are trying to get into the business and the industry of it, that there's just so many ways to get there, and I think that's what's so cool. So it's kind of a good segue as to say, and I know you golf, and you're obviously broadcasting and know a thing or two about it. So how did golf even come into your life? Like, when did that all start?
So it definitely started when I was a little kid, grew up on a golf course. It was actually really fun because my dad grew up on the same golf course in Michigan that
Cool.
I grew up on as well. So our house through, I think when I was in fifth grade, was on the fourth green of our country club. And then my cousin's house, my dad's brother, they were on the third green. And then my grandparents' house was on the cart path in between.
Oh my
So
gosh.
growing up, it was kind of like the classic, you go to junior golf in the morning and then swimming practice and then tennis in the afternoon, kind of a full day. Now
Yeah.
that I'm looking back of like super fun daycare essentially.
Right.
Club.
Right.
But growing up too, it was like running around the golf course, fishing in the pond behind our house with my grandparents and just spending like that was our backyard. So it's kind of funny because growing up, actually playing golf was not my favorite thing, and that's putting it nicely. Like I quit junior golf once we got to maybe six holers, and I hated wearing Bermuda shorts. There was this mass exodus of
Yeah.
almost all the girls that played golf, and we were like, give us swimming and tennis, like we're good, and the boys stuck
Right.
around for golf. I had a lot more fun. I'd go out with my grandpa in my backyard and have lemonade stands on the golf course, and oh my gosh, I made bank doing that. Like
I
those were some of my best memories. So it was super fun, growing up that way. And I always think back and I'm like kind of mad that I quit golf, but I also am not because I totally understand why I did. Like it didn't feel like a girl's sport at the time. I was super uncomfortable wearing Bermuda shorts. I didn't want to wake up at 5 a.m. And so part of me regrets not sticking with it. And looking back, I'm like, I wish I played in high school or tried to play in college
yeah.
because now I see all the opportunities that could have opened for me. But, everything happens for a reason. For me, it was like lacrosse was my favorite sport in high school. I wanted to play lacrosse. And
Did I know that?
I don't know if we've chatted about that before, maybe a little bit.
Because that was my sport.
I
Totally. I
was
went to
like,
college to play. That's awesome.
yeah, I mean, I was not that good too, which is the thing. But I loved it, and I wanted to go
Yeah.
to like a small D3
Yeah.
school, play lacrosse, go out east. That was like my dream
Oh,
growing up, and
so
I
crazy.
wound up getting hurt, and then it was like University of Michigan, Big Ten football, like that's the route we're taking. So when that kind of happened and I couldn't play sports anymore in college, that's when I picked golf back up because I was like, I need something to do.
Oh,
I
that's cool.
feel like when you are an athlete growing up at whatever level and then you get older, it's either run marathons or learn to play golf. And
That's so true.
for me, it was like, okay, well, I do love golf. I've always loved
Yeah.
going out with my family. I've never been that good, but I can work on this by myself. And
Yeah.
so to kind of get to where we are now, I wound up getting into sports broadcasting. Didn't plan on doing that either, but somehow
But
we
you
got
went
here.
to you went to Northwestern, right?
So I went to Michigan for undergrad. And
Got it, got
then,
it.
yep. And then when I graduated, moved to Chicago, started working. And while I was in Chicago, was like, well, Northwestern's the best journalism school in the country. I guess we'll just apply.
Incredible.
And if we get in, we'll go. And that's the only
Was
place I
were
applied.
you were
It
you like
worked.
were you a sports nut? Like were you like I love watching football? Like this is like how did the journalism I mean, where was the interest there and did you have sports in mind or was it something completely different?
It's so funny, and I don't want to like out myself, but like, no, I didn't really watch. I didn't really like love watching sports on TV growing up. I never saw it as a job of something I wanted to do. I think that a lot of that is also just like one, my interest in it when I was younger. Like I was not watching football games on TV when I was younger religiously. Like I wasn't
Yeah.
so interested in it. And I think there's not a ton of representation as well. Like I didn't know anyone who had this job, so it
Right.
never even crossed my mind. Like for me growing up, I was like, I'm either going to med school, law school, or business school. Like
Yeah.
I guess I'll pick one and see. So when I was at Michigan, I was actually pre-med. I studied neuroscience and kinesiology. And at the time, I was going through this injury from high school and was super interested. I was teaching yoga. I was really passionate about mental health and kind of like the whole mind body connection. I had a little bit of a hippie phase where I was vegan at the time. Would not recommend that. Sorry, anybody out there. Anyway, so I was like, maybe I could go be a sports psychologist or, do sports marketing or something like that. So I was like, I want to do sports, but I don't know how. And there literally was a girl in my sorority my sophomore year of college who did our student TV station at Michigan for the basketball show. And she was like, hey, do you want to come with me? We just could use extra help, like holding cameras or something. And I was like, I don't have anything to do tonight. Sure, I'll go. And that was the first time I actually was like, whoa, like, I didn't even know this club existed, let alone like people on TV. To me, that wasn't a real job. Somehow in my mind, it was like something you were like born into or it just happened or like the same way you see actors on TV. It's like, how did they get there? It seems like they just got there. And that's obviously not true, but the path to it wasn't clear or
Yeah.
even really exist to me until I saw that. And then I was like, wait, this is so cool.
How neat is
And
that?
so I joined that club, and through that was like, it was this big epiphany where I was like, okay, why do I even want to work in sports? And then I was like, I love sports. I love, the nature of competition. I love looking at the teams and the people. And then I love to talk. I was like, I literally could just like chat professionally.
Oh, that's amazing.
I also, growing up, like loved to perform, but I was not good at anything. Like I can't sing, I can't dance, I can't act.
Interesting.
But I love
Yeah.
to do, like I love public speaking and stuff like that. So once I saw it, I was like, oh, this kind of works.
Do this.
We'll just rock with it.
That's so neat. And so that helped you just through that club. That's when you did you have a teacher or anybody that kind of guided you and being like, you need to go get your master's and it needs to be in broadcast journalism?
Not at all,
Or
because
just-
like I said, so undergrad, I loved school. I'm like the biggest school nerd ever.
I was gonna say you have to be the smartest thing ever.
So when I went to Michigan, I was
amazing.
in a program for writing and art, and those were like my passions. And it was this program where you do writing and art, but it was for students who also wanted to pursue other degrees. So I was taking writing and art classes, and then I was in these two, like biopsychology, cognition and neuroscience, and then kinesiology. And then my minor was in American culture. So I was like all over the place, but not a
Jeez.
single one of those classes had anything to do with journalism, broadcast, news, like sport, like nothing. So no, I didn't really have anybody that kind of guided me there. It was more through the practice of, joining the student TV show, getting those reps. was reporting on the basketball team. And then as I started to get work and get my first jobs in the industry, I began to work with a broadcasting talent coach. And I would say she's the biggest person who has kind of guided me through, like, what do you need? What do what are your goals? What do we need to get you to get there? And then all the pieces kind of just fell into place. And that was going back to school, which I was happy about. I was like, great, another year of school. And so it all kind of just worked out from there. But it was a lot of just reaching out for mentors and, trying to find what other people did and seeing what you could copy that, could work for me as well.
That's amazing. And again, always a common thread too is like reaching out for help and asking questions and putting yourself out there. So you obviously did that when you decided, like, I need to learn more, and how do I get to that point? What about, so as you went on to then Northwestern, I mean, did you have any major internships or like jobs while you were there that either solidified kind of your next, like, I don't know, job in the business? Like, how did that all transpire?
Yeah, so my first job in Chicago was at ABC 7 Chicago. I was working on a talk show in production, which was the coolest thing ever.
Cool.
I was like, this is so fun. It's not sports, it's something different. And at that internship was where, we had a whole group of interns of, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 of us. And we were all different ages. So when I came in, like, the older interns, like, 2 of them were at Northwestern, and then someone in my class was at Northwestern. There were all these Northwestern grads, which makes sense because it's also in downtown Chicago, that had the same internship as me. So that's how I wound up at Northwestern. But while I was living in Chicago before going to grad school, I was like freelancing for smaller schools in Chicago on the broadcast side, as an analyst or as a reporter, driving up to Loyola or DePaul or University of Chicago or back at Eastern Michigan, like anywhere I could get, a gig to get reps. And then I was also publishing the Northwestern site on Sports Illustrated at the time.
Oh, cool.
I was also hostessing at a restaurant. So I was just like all over the place trying to figure it out and get reps. And I continued to do all those things while I was in school. But I guess to answer your question specifically, when I was doing my master's project at Northwestern, you could basically pick any reporting project you wanted to do and spend, a couple months working on it. So I went up and did a series on the Northwestern football players. I called it Cats in the Wild, and I took football players to do some sort of like fun, silly hobby, whether it was something they're passionate about, or like I forced one player to build sandcastles with me on the beach at Northwestern. And just get to know them that way through a series of videos. And the interesting thing about Northwestern is, like, it's a Big Ten school in a major city, but there's so many professional teams in Chicago that a lot of reporters don't venture up to Evanston. So there really was this opportunity to, continue to tell those stories, which led to my current role at Northwestern as their team reporter, where it was the head coach at the time was like, hey, you're already up here. We all know you. I was around the program a lot. Like, do you want to just come do this for us internally? Which was really cool because I got to craft my own role and, work on my job description and develop it into something that really worked for me, but that I thought really benefited the program as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's incredible. And we were just talking before this call that there's a little this like stardom seeing you on TV. And of course, being in Ohio, we had to sit and watch the Ohio State Northwestern game. And my boys completely geeked over the fact that I knew you, that you were wearing A.PUTNAM, that you were at the Ohio State Northwestern game. And then lastly, like cherry on top, was the fact that you were in Wrigley Field. And I showed them the behind the scenes like tour of Wrigley Field and how they transformed that, which I thought was absolutely fascinating. I want to ask you about that because I think that was so special, but it's a big moment for you. Like, it's very cool.
It's really cool growing up in Michigan, but, living in Chicago for the last 5 years, going on 6. It's such an iconic place, and I'm so grateful to Northwestern for those opportunities. It's one of the most unique things in college
Yeah.
football to actually have your second venue be Wrigley Field, let alone, you know,
Right.
any baseball stadium, let alone Wrigley Field. And so to first of all get access to be able to do that is always a pinch me moment, because you're walking through, you know, the most historic ballpark
Yeah.
that you go as a fan, and you sit there and you're still in awe of, you know, all the history and how beautiful it is. And then to actually get to go inside and get the access to, you know, show more and try to bring that to the fans is so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, it is like every time I go, I'm like, this is so cool. I'm so lucky. But, you know, it's a really cool experience for the players, too. It's an awesome experience for the fans. It's like going to a bowl game in the regular season. But, I mean, Chicago is just so special in Chicago sports. And Wrigley Field is like the cherry on top of,
It
you know,
is.
anything you could do.
Yeah, and it's really cool, and you have such I don't know, it's like an approachableness, I think, in your personality and like playfulness. And I know you sometimes will share on your Instagram some of the behind the scenes of you like re-recording something, and I just think that like energy and likeness that you have is so contagious, and it's fun to watch.
I
It just was-
appreciate that.
It was so cool. I'm sure your parents are super proud of you. Like, it's got to be so neat to see you thrive in what you're doing.
It's fun. I'm
amazing.
taking my parents to their first football game at Wrigley next weekend, so our last game of the season. And
Cool.
I think I'm more excited for them to be there than they probably
bet.
will be to be sitting in the cold. But it's
Bundle up.
it's special moments for sure, especially when I'm so excited to be rocking A.PUTNAM up on some of our
Oh,
video
you're so
board
cute.
content.
You're so cute. We
So
get
for
excited.
I don't know, for my parents to sit there and then they can watch
Yeah.
me on the Jumbotron at Wrigley Field, it's definitely cool for them. But I think it's cooler for me. Like, it's this kind of a weird way to put it, but whenever my family comes to my games, I watch them. I think the way that a groom
Yeah.
watches a bride walk down the aisle, like
Yeah,
everyone
yeah.
watches
Aw.
the groom's reaction versus watching the bride. I'm like, I want to see my parents' reaction to that rather than actually
Yeah.
watching me.
Right, 100%. That's so neat. And that's like you being like an athlete at heart and stuff too. That's I think how a lot of people feel, and that's
Yeah.
such a good feeling just to share kind of your accomplishments and have somebody there that's on the sidelines supporting you. Like,
Yes.
there's so much love and value in that, and it just makes you obviously a stronger, you know, professional woman and keep going after those goals. And I think we have to, like, I'm so curious to dabble in like the PGA Tour side of things too, and what you're doing, because I know in the spotlight right now, just because it's football season, that's where we're seeing you. But tell me a little bit about how you got a gig doing that, like in the golf world.
Yeah, it all actually still goes back to Northwestern when I was in grad school and I was broadcasting all these sports. I mean, volleyball, lacrosse, field hockey, soccer, basketball. It was like everything under the rainbow. Golf broadcast is interesting because it doesn't really exist except for at the professional level or at the highest level in college. But there was an opportunity when I was in grad school that one of my professors found and sent my way. He was like, hey, Lauren, they're going to be broadcasting the MAC, the Mid-American Conference Men's Golf Championships. They need broadcasters for it. Do you want to do it? And this is one of those moments I look back on, me and my parents joke about, because when he reached out and asked that, my immediate reaction was no, because it was in 2 weeks and I was like, I don't know how to prepare for a field of this many players 2 weeks away. I've never broadcast golf. I don't know how to do it at all. And I also didn't play, you know, college golf. So even
Right.
getting into, there's this period in broadcasting where you have to really kind of immerse yourself to have the, you know, the vernacular of whatever you're talking about just come second nature. And I was like, I have not flexed my talking about golf muscle at all lately. Like
Right.
I didn't want to take the opportunity and then mess it up. But then, so I said no. And then like 10 minutes later, I was like, what am I doing? Like, of course I have to do it. And I called him back and was like, I'll be there. Sign me up.
Oh my gosh, cool.
So that was a really cool opportunity where they actually broadcasted that conference championship. It was 4 days of like 12-hour broadcasts per day. And
Jeez.
I was actually the analyst, which is kind of funny because I wasn't a professional, but you know, I had a play-by-play broadcaster who I worked with. He was awesome, and it was like a crash course. But when you're working on it for something for 12 hours a day for 4 days, it's like by day 4, you're rocking and rolling.
I bet that's true.
So what was cool is that same golf course that hosted the MAC Men's Golf Championship also hosted the Illinois PGA Championships a couple, maybe 6 weeks later. So they ended up having us back to broadcast that tournament as well, which was awesome because by then I was like, okay, now I've got an idea of how to prepare for this and how to do it. And so through those 2 opportunities, I knew I was like, this is so cool. Like you know, maybe I didn't want to play golf in junior golf or whatever. I love it now, and getting to broadcast it is so much fun. Like I want to do this. But I also knew that just on air wise, I was like, this was 2022 at the time in the summer. And I knew I was like, I'm not ready. Like I still need to improve certain things on camera and my delivery and in my knowledge before I'll be ready for that next level. So I kind of had it on the back burner of like, I want to do this, but I'm not ready yet. I don't want to shoot my shot too early because again, you can't, in every other sport, you know, in football, basketball, whatever, you can go get reps at high school and then you can go to D3 colleges and then you can work your way up and, you know, have a bigger stage every time and take those steps gradually. But in golf, it was like the one shot I get to shoot is going to be with the PGA Tour or the LPGA Tour.
Oh my
There's
gosh,
no
daunting
other option. So I was trying to be strategic and wait. In that time last year, I was like, okay, I feel ready. I'm going to finally send my tape in and see how it goes. And so through those 2 broadcasts, the Illinois Open and the MAC Men's Golf Championship, I was able to put up a golf reel and send that in. And then I sent it in with a reel of current work and I basically was like, look, this is what my delivery is like now. Here's my current work. And here is to prove that I've done golf before. And so I was hoping they could look at the 2 together and be like, okay, you know, we can combine these. And it was really cool because when I got a hold of the PGA Tour and was able to talk to them, they were like, how the heck do you have a golf reel? Like, where is this broadcast even from? And that was a cool moment because it made me realize I was like, I'm so lucky to have had those opportunities that my professor at Northwestern gave me because like they haven't broadcast the MAC Men's Golf Championship any other year. Like that was such a rare one-off that opened such a door for me really 2 years down the line. So all that being said, it really was sending my demo tape in and going down to Florida for a tournament in January last year. They had me kind of shadow and then threw me on air to like essentially audition a bit. And then after that, it was just, you know, hope I get opportunities and hope they'll call me to come broadcast events. And it turned into, you know, one event turned into a handful and some other opportunities as well on the Corn Ferry Tour and hosting The Cut, which was airing on Golf Channel, and all these really cool things just kind of naturally unfolded after that.
It is. Okay, so I have 2 questions because I'm so intrigued by this because it's just not a world I've ever lived in and most haven't. But like in terms of finding these opportunities, is it a lot of you doing the outreach to either a name you know or a door you've had open before, or is it a little bit, I'm sure it's a combination, or do you get kind of these random phone calls and emails that are like, oh wow, somebody obviously stumbled across me at some point in their, you know, archive of things they're researching to find people? Like, is it a combination or is like, what is it?
It's definitely a combination. I would say for me, it's being strategically very aggressive. Like my, I guess, prototype move for trying to get opportunities is figure out who's the person that would be hiring this role, you know, whether like that's looking online or however, and planning a way to reach out to them, and then also looking at my network and saying, who knows this person too, so that I can come in from multiple angles and try to have somebody vouch for me. Because if you think about producers, especially on the PGA Tour, where it's really the only, PGA Tour, LPGA Tour, Golf Channel, like there's so few outlets actually broadcasting golf, that if you think about the volume of demo reels that they get sent and the amount of people wanting to do this, it's like you got to stand out somehow. And you got to stand out, I think, before they'll even watch your reel. Like they have to have a reason to be like, oh, let me open this email.
I'll look at this one.
So I would say the way I've had the most success is finding out who I want to talk to, and then finding out someone that also knows that person, and trying to have that connection be made that way.
Yeah, and that's so important. I think that's a little bit in this world of technology and how easy it is, I think, to find people's contact information, and they're constantly bombarded. So unless you have that extra layer of contact or, like you said, that network, you're kind of lost in the shuffle, I'm sure, to some degree. So it's got to be double-edged. And we find that the same way in our business too. Like with Private Country Club, you can't call a pro shop and, ask for the buyer. Like it's just not the way it works. And especially I think in golf, it's just, it gives you such a leg up if you've got a reference of some sort backing you or saying, I've met her, you should really look at this one. So it is. It's really cool. And it's a lot of work, though. I think, too, it isn't just... And that's what's hard. I think people, naturally, it's hard to hear no. It's hard to be rejected. And so I'm sure you've probably had those moments. You're like, ugh, bummer. Like, they didn't open it. Or never heard back. Or I heard back and they were like, not right now. So, and I don't know how you deal with that. If you kind of chalk it up as like, I'll try them next time.
I think that whenever those moments happen, I try to be super open-minded about opportunities, and I think that I've got kind of a weird way. I like give myself more schoolwork when I don't need to, but I'm really big into Excel. I love Excel. And so I've got a master list of events that are happening, contacts I know, leagues, like anything I know that's relevant to work. And for example, in golf, I think that you just have to be, once you can become more open-minded and be creative, you see how many opportunities are out there. So if you look at golf, for example, if you say like, all I want to do is be a play-by-play host on the PGA Tour, you're putting yourself into such a box. And if you don't achieve that, you're going to be so upset and dejected. But the way I look at it is like, if I'm trying to put together a calendar of work, it's like, okay, what can I get on the PGA Tour? Great. Beyond that, it's like, can I look at events? Are there opportunities with the tournament or with the event directly? Beyond that, can I look at brands and see if there's an opportunity to go work with a brand or represent them and create content that way? Can I look at who the title sponsors for an event are and maybe they would hire me? So I think that the more you think outside the box, the more opportunities you see actually are out there.
100%.
And the less the rejections hurt.
And
I think that's
you're kind of like,
it.
Right. You're kind of on to like trying the next thing on your list or I think it broadens your resume, your experience. I know you're doing, even in Northwestern, I know you're doing a lot of the like kind of content production, which is so vital to just businesses in our society right now. Is like, it's a huge leg up. Like if you have the ability to be that, creative mind in something more than just presenting yourself on camera.
Yeah, I think it's totally huge, especially with where social media is now and how much, money even is in social media. Like it's not just like a fun opportunity anymore. Like it's such a real business that, as a broadcaster, it's like, I can't even call myself just a broadcaster because I shoot content, I'll edit, whatever. And I think if you can check your ego and realize like, all these are legit jobs and they're all great opportunities, and you take yourself outside that box, then you're going to, find so many more things to do.
Absolutely. And so my second question, and I'm kind of kicking myself for not asking Paige McKenzie and Chantel McCabe this, but you get the lucky question. How do you prep for a golf tournament? It like makes me sweat. I mean, from names, from how this player's been playing in the last few tournaments. Like, how do you even start? Or
It's a
do you
great
have a prompt? Like, can you type out your own prompted script? Like, what in the world do you ladies do?
It's a great question, and I think that Chantal Page, I don't know their exact process, and they've also been in the industry a lot longer than me, so I
Yeah.
imagine I have to probably dig a lot deeper because things aren't so naturally in my brain yet.
Right.
Like I think it is for them because they're such seasoned pros, but
Yeah.
obviously they still do a ton of prep work. In broadcast in general, like 90% of the job is before the broadcast. Like all your work pretty much is beforehand in your prep, and then the delivery, it's like baking a cake and then like the broadcast is handing the cake to someone. All the work has already been done. So I mean, for me personally, for a PGA Tour event, if I'm the play-by-play host, it's a big document. I use Microsoft OneNote for it so I can organize everything. And I'll have a tab where I research golf course history. I'll have another tab where I'm researching tournament history. Another tab where I've got layouts of every single hole and I have yardages marked and I have it drawn up. I'll have other tabs. I have a tab for every single player with their stats and their notes, which obviously is a lot, and half that goes out the window after the cut has been made. And so it kind of depends what you're actually broadcasting. So for example, if I'm on a PGA Tour live stream that's following our marquee group, so we'll follow a couple groups throughout the day, but I'll basically have a tab that has every player in that group, all their stats and all their notes on that player. And so when you're actually calling golf, it's really this dance of watching the broadcast so you can say what's happening, but probably 75% of the time I'm looking down because I'm also have 3 computers in front of me. I'm scrolling through my notes on the player. I'm looking at, we've got a stat tablet where we can get live updates on player stats on the hole, on the golf course, however anything's playing. You're moving through that, and then you're also moving through tournament notes. So it's a lot of like the art in golf broadcasting really is just learning how to jump between all this research that you've already done.
It sounds so overwhelming.
And deliver it on air. It's crazy because it's such an art form, and it's really this dance, and it's not all on you too. Like we're sitting beside an analyst who, I mean, we're so lucky to work with, I think, an amazing team of broadcasters. And especially when I was starting, they were so patient with me, and I wasn't so fast at looking through my notes, but they would see me trying to find something to deliver, and, they'd keep talking. And like, they always have your back, and they're really good at also helping you manage the time of the broadcast. So it really is this like cool dance between you, the analyst, the broadcast, but you're finding way to dig through all this research and get it onto the air. And it's cool how much every tournament you get better, and every day in the tournament you get better, and you get into such a flow, and the storylines, you're reading articles, like you're doing all this research. And the PGA Tour makes it easier on us for sure because they provide a lot of, the actual data and the notes, and our job more is to digest it and put it into a format that works for us. But I do it the same way I made my study guides in college, which is like hilarious to me. Like, that's what I learned.
But that's amazing. And some people have a knack for that and some don't. But I think what's so neat to hear is like, not that I've always had the assumption, but I would say most probably think you've got something somewhat scripted. You're a beautiful face and personality on camera. And not that it stops there, but like you have so much work. And like you said, organizing notes, being able to digest so many data points and factors in the 30-second update you have to give on the 9th hole. Like, that's insane. And I'm sure, even that line of work, and I'm sure with football too, like you probably become like a nut about it. So are you now at this point with golf where you're just like, I want to watch this tournament this weekend, and I do want to check on how so-and-so's doing? Like, is it just now part of your world because it's probably easy for, I'm assuming it's easier for you to keep up on that stuff so that the next opportunity you have to broadcast for PGA Tour, you're like, all right, I kind of like, I have a vibe and know what's going on. Like, you probably can't just drop golf and not pay attention to it for a month.
You're completely right. I mean, you have to keep paying attention, and it's like,
Yeah.
the more tournaments you watch, the less you have to do research and figure out what just happened. So it's already in your head. And that's been kind of my biggest thing. Like, in college, I was covering Michigan basketball. And then at Northwestern, I'm doing football. And then now I'm doing golf. And I've found that every time I've done one of these sports, I've started at, I don't want to say ground zero, but in terms of like where you need to be, you're starting at a new baseline. But the longer that you're fully immersed in it and that you witness things with your own eyes, the more that's just like secondhand nature information for you. And it becomes a lot easier. I think that one of the balances I'm still trying to find is, for me, it's really hard in football season to also be watching golf because I'm at a football game or I'm at football practice. And so that balance has been interesting, where I'm finding a way of like, how can I keep up enough and stay in tune? Now, granted, golf season, you know, the FedEx Cup Championships are right when the start of football season is. So it is, you know, nice that way. There's not as much to keep up on. But at the same time, these are all different moving parts. And I think where I struggle, and I'm still trying to find balance, is if I'm at football all day, like when I come home Saturday from a game, like I don't personally want to watch more football. I want to see my friends. I want to spend time with my family. I want to go outside. Like I can't make it my whole life.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find the balance when there's infinite things happening out there and there's so much information of like, how consumed by this do I want to be versus how do I find a way to, you know, stay in touch enough that I'm learning what I need to know versus sitting in front of a TV for 4 days straight all day, you know?
Yeah. And you don't ever, I like, none of us do, right? Where work becomes your life and that's all you have. So it's kind of an interesting balance, which for some, watching sports is such a hobby or like way to relax. And it's just different for you when you live and breathe it and it is your line of work. And you, like you said, you don't want to be overrun by it where you start to not lose interest, but be swamped by it. So, and I think it's such a, I'm really curious, like, what are your hobbies outside of work? Like, top 3 things where, like, if I could do X, Y, Z when I have a free moment, which doesn't sound like you have a lot of, like, what are you off doing?
I would say one of them is definitely playing golf.
Yeah.
And that's fun for me. And it's why I love golf broadcasts so much, is it's the only sport I can actually be a part of and, you know, understand at a practical level and play myself. Like, I'm not out playing football. So that's one thing I love. I always say, like, there's only 3 things that get me to put my phone away and get off social media and unplug. And it's playing golf, like going to the driving range. Drawing is like one of my favorite passions, or working on puzzles. Like, it's things like that that I just totally geek out on outside of like hanging out with my dog, where I'm like, that's what all I want to do in my free time is, other than spend time with my friends. Like when I'm by myself, it's like work on a art project, go play golf, do something like that, to literally just get off my phone and get off the internet.
That's so good. And it's hard to find, I don't know, it is. It's hard to find time for that in those activities that we all need to put our phone down. But you did have your phone up the other day when you were working on our project, and that's when I was like, wait, what? I mean, it's so fun to see, and obviously you're so smart and your brain works in a million different directions, for you to have this artistic knack as well. And you said you studied art at some point, like, but it's so fun to see when people come to the table with like, oh, here's this little thing I like to do. And you're like, a little thing? Like, it was so cool. You had that drawing. And what were you using? What medium was that?
All charcoal.
All charcoal. And I was like, the basket of balls. I was like, that was so neat.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And you totally called me out for still being on my phone after I'm saying.
But I'm glad you were in that moment. But it's so,
I'm like, I'm not
cool.
texting. I'm just filming it. No. Like, I can't stop. But that's been one of my favorite things. I mean, growing up, I was always super crafty and artistic, and like always working on a project. Like, it could be anything. But when I went to Michigan, there was this program for writing and fine art it was for students who were interested in writing and fine art but wanted to pursue other degrees. And so part of that, we'd like take fine art classes inside our dorm and take writing classes in our dorm. And one of those classes was a intro to drawing class, and we used charcoal, and we would sketch a nude model every day, every class, once a week for like 4 hours. We had a nude model. We were learning how to draw with charcoal and shade, and like just learn how to draw in general, which was never a strength of mine. Like I've done so many I did metal smithing in high school. Like I was never a drawing type of girl. Like I'd doodle, but even that, like through taking the classes, there's such a method to being able to do it. And I don't want to say I don't have any talent. Like I don't want to talk about myself that way, because I think I do have like a knack for art.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's like that's something I learned how to do, like to draw in that way, and to use charcoal, and how to like even learn proportions of things. Like there's literally a method to it that you can learn and go out and do. And I think anyone could really do it if they wanted to. But that stuck with me, and it has become one of my favorite things. I'm not always working on a drawing. You definitely have to be in a mindset to sit down, because it's one of those things, you sit down at 6 o'clock and then suddenly it's 1 a.m. and I realized I haven't even stood up for however many hours. And so for that reason, I love it. But you've got to also feel inspired, and it's become cool. So I've made it into this series where I'm nowhere near close to caught up or anywhere I'd like to be, but I'm trying to draw a picture from every stadium or golf course or venue that I've actually worked in and broadcasted in. So I've got a handful of them framed around my apartment. I've done a lot as gifts. My brother has some hanging in his house.
That's so neat.
It's a fun thing to visit when you need something to do and to unplug for a while.
Right. It's just on your time and your control and your creativity, which probably, like you said, balances you out, and you need that.
Totally.
That's so cool. So just to wrap this up, do you have any advice for, I think in particular, looking at kind of the golf world, any woman that's interested in, I think from a broadcast perspective, but just I think golf in general, do you have any advice?
I think it's just reach out and start talking to people. That's one of the things I've loved so much about golf is it really is a tight-knit, it's a small community. I mean, I love even looking at your Women in Golf series, because there are so many women in that series whom I haven't met in person, but I've been connected with. And I'm like, I know who that is. I recognize that face. And I think that makes it really special compared to other sports like football or basketball or anything like that, because it is such a small community. And especially with the women in the group, it's definitely a sisterhood. Have had so many women who are so experienced in the industry be extremely welcoming to me, reach out to me with advice, like reach out to check in on me, and offer me professional advice, offer me friendship, hold my hand, show me the ropes. And I love that you had Chantel McCabe on, because she was so funny. We had met once working a tournament together, and she called me a couple weeks after and was like, do you want to come on a girls' golf trip with me? And I was like,
cute.
Who's going? And she was like, oh, it's just 5 women who love golf, and we're going to go to Tampa. And I was like, I barely know you, but
that's cool.
Like, I'll go, and we're going to have we had an amazing time. And it's people like that who make this industry so much fun. So back to the advice, it's like, I think that golf, while it can be an intimidating, sport in general, the women in golf are so approachable and so kind and so generous that I think you do yourself a disservice not to be reaching out and to ask for mentorship and ask for, opportunities to shadow or to learn, because people are so generous in this sport, especially the girls.
Yeah, and I think everybody's been in their shoes at some point. And that's the other thing. It's not kind of a paying it forward, but I think it's like you said, being such a small community, and it's like we all just wanted to grow. And I think highlighting everything that women are doing in the sport is so fun, but it's also easy to do. Like they're just amazing people out there. So I'm right with you. I think that's such good advice for any lady that's trying to find their way in the industry. And there's just so many cool things going on. So, and it's just today so nice of you to share your story and what you've been up to. Like I said, so busy and so many cool things, and I know there's a lot ahead for you, so we are really excited to cheer you on.
Well, I appreciate that. It's been so fun having you guys over there also supporting me likewise. I told you this over social media, but it's funny with golf, when I was saying I quit when I was little because I hated wearing Bermuda shorts. Now, golf fashion, I'm like, this is my favorite thing. And it's really cool to have, you know, a company like yours and people like you and Alexa and everyone that you work with who are so generous, but also help people like me feel so confident doing our jobs and to keep growing. And so I'm like, I've worn your clothes in all my biggest moments, and I'll keep doing the same thing.
I mean, it like makes us like so proud. I feel like I think we're just cheerleaders of like all of you ladies, and so it makes it so easy to just see those. I mean, seeing you guys in those moments where you're just like, that is killer. Like, it is so cool. I mean, we're just honored to have any tiny little part of it. So it's so neat, and we're just excited to get this interview out and shared with everybody, because like we said in the beginning, you never get to be on the other side of the table, and you did great.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, I'm a little nervous, but you as well. I think you could also have a future in golf broadcast if you'd like to do that.
Oh my gosh. Well, you should have seen me yesterday when I had our like content shoot day, and I had something that was not somewhat scripted, but the second I was like, I can't do this. Like I took 20 takes. The second I felt like I had to read off a card and memorize it, that for me is just not doable. If I could just wing everything, I'd probably be fine. But
that's the way to do it. That way it's natural, you know?
Man. But as you said, lots of prep behind there, lots of hard work, and we so enjoy seeing you do it.
Thanks, Allie.
Thanks, Lauren.